Hello and welcome to the Eclipse Evolution podcast. I am your host, Savannah Rose Johnson. I'm very excited to be seeing you all today and connecting with you all today to talk about a theme that's been showing up for me for quite some time. And also, I feel like it's something that is very close to my heart. So, a few things actually that I wanted to share with you all today is this concept of being a girl's girl or a woman's woman, and how that is also connected to something in sociology or just in the study of people and society, how that's connected to something else called internalized misogyny. And that's something that is more so what has been an experience of mine. It's something that I wrote papers on in my major classes and whatnot. It's really close to my heart. And then that also leads me to the third topic, how it's all connected to this theme, and that is the topic of divine femininity. So it is just a really big discussion today on femininity, on sisterhood, on womanhood, on self-love as well. So first, it really was surprising to me when just the other day someone introduced me to another female, a female introduced me to another female as like, oh, this is Savannah, you're gonna love her, she's a girl's girl. And that really took me by surprise because it was something that I was really happy in that moment that was recognized, because that hasn't always been the case. I haven't always, up until really now, had a close circle of female friends. I haven't really had a close circle of just supportive, strong women in my life. I've had females in my life. I've had lots of friends, so forth, family members, whatnot. But so kind of up until this point, I've really kind of considered myself more of like what you can call like a lipstick tomboy in a way, like where most of my friends were guys. I mean, even gay guys, like, but they're still guys at the end of the day. Having like a strong group of girls in my life wasn't really something that I had until like now. And I'm really grateful to be in this place. What has kind of helped me understand this journey is kind of uncovering this concept of internalized misogyny. And so before I get to that, this kind of idea of a girl's girl is like a woman or woman identifying person who is very supportive of other women, who is all about like Yas Queen energy. So it's very much like a coexisting of a strong woman and her power, and also how she wants to uplift and support other women to be the same, to be strong, and just embracing our authentic expression as females. And so this is something that has been a journey, really, when it comes down to loving myself and not being envious of other women or jealous of other women, and because that totally happens. And so I was really happy when my friend described me to another woman as a woman's woman. And then instantly that girl that I connected with was like, her guard went down and we just were able to connect, and just, it was such a good feeling, because this role that internalized misogyny plays in our culture. When I say our culture, I mean like I'm here in the United States, in particular the South. And misogyny is something that not only men can possess. There's a really unique kind of underlying current within the female community of like competition between females, whether it's competition for the attention or approval of a man, or even just competition between each other, as far as like clothing, looks, status, even relationships, family, you name it. It's just always something to compete on. And so, whereas misogyny is typically like when a man is like being like anti-woman, and a lot of different definitions of that. But let's say a man is like, oh, a woman just needs to stay in the kitchen or whatever. That's an example of misogyny. There's lots of other ways that can happen, but that is like an example. So it's like seeing being a female as something less than, as something like less than, especially in comparison to other men. But, and also with that, like upholding the kind of the standard of approval being that of other men, in particular, like usually cis het men. So that being said, when we as women have what we call internalized misogyny, that is when we kind of a lot of times unknowingly and unconsciously, just because of our society's structure and the subliminal messages in our culture, and sometimes not so subliminal messages, or even like trauma in our life, that can therefore lead to us having some elements of internalized misogyny. And this is something that I really struggled with myself when it comes down to things like comparing myself to others, being jealous of other women for how their bodies are, or for like their relationships, or for their careers, you name it. So, and there's actually kind of like on a funny side of this, like there's a joke that like the whole designer fashion industry exists not because women are trying to dress up and impress other men, because I'm more often than not, like it just kind of depends on the guy, but a lot of times like guys really could care less about that kind of stuff. I know my partner, he's like, he doesn't know Gucci from Prada, and that's fine. That is totally him, and I love that about him. But a lot of times, like women, we really get dressed up, like not so much to impress other guys, but to impress women, to make other women jealous. So this is an example of internalized misogyny. And even when it comes down to media and how the media plays a role in this, there's something called the male gaze, which is like a specific aesthetic of whether it's content that people create or even just photography, usually something visual, of course, if it's like involving gaze, that is really curated towards men and kind of their preferences. And a lot of times in something with the male gaze, women are more so put in this light of like not necessarily hyper feminine, but more like sexualized. So this can come across in many different ways. So I know there's been some comparisons between like different TikTok influencers where like a girl's girl, her TikTok account is more so like content based around women and topics supporting women and helping women flourish and develop, whereas like other women who are labeled more as like men's women, that kind of stuff, are more so like showing off, not so much like what's in their head or their personality, but sometimes it's more so driven towards like their body and kind of sexualizing like that visual aspect. So the male gaze is like a specific kind of aesthetic. Think like Playboy magazine. There, of course, like there are elements to certain things in that magazine that can be appealing to women, but a lot of times, like if as a female, if I look at like something like a Playboy, I'm like, how is she comfortable in that that pose or whatever? Because it's not so much like, I guess for me, I have empathy towards that woman, and I'm like, she does not look comfortable arching her back that far or whatever the case may be. But to the guy, they don't know. They just think it looks good. It accentuates their assets, etc. So all that being said, when women have or experience internalized misogyny, it's either like standards they hold themselves to, or standards that they hold other women to, or even just sometimes that element of competition. So we see this a lot in, like I said, envy and jealousy. And someone taught me recently that envy is more so like something that we wish we had, and jealousy is something more like we are afraid of losing something that we have. So let's say we see as women a gorgeous girl on the street, we might feel jealous of her because we recognize that she's gorgeous, recognize maybe she, if we're comparing ourselves to her, maybe we feel like threatened because we don't feel as pretty as her, or as whatever as her. And so therefore that can lead to jealousy, because let's say we're with our boyfriend or girlfriend, whomever, a romantic partner, and we maybe will feel jealous that we will lose our partner to that gorgeous woman. So that being said, then on the other side with envy, this is where the fashion industry comes in. So it's this kind of game of envy. And honestly, the fashion industry is not even really limited to females. I mean, that's kind of for everyone. I mean, fashion is art. But for this example's sake, the fashion industry is like, oh, I got this bag, so that means something about me, and it means maybe this person can't afford that bag, so maybe there's this game of status, wealth, or classes even clashing and whatnot. So it's internalized misogyny can play out in so many different parts of our life, and how we ourselves as women sometimes are trained or brought up to believe these things, or just assume this role of a competition without us even realizing it. Something that you can always do to explore, if you maybe have been conditioned with some misogynistic tendencies, is to go back and watch like maybe some of your favorite childhood shows or movies and see like if there's any elements of female competition. Lizzie McGuire is the first one that comes to my mind, because here's Lizzie, this super cute girl, and she's just trying to live her life, and she's stressing about her body, she's stressing about how she looks, her hair, like everything teenage girls go through. And then you have Kate, like the popular girl, who's like really mean and always is putting Lizzie down, and they used to be friends, but now here they come, and this misogynistic behavior is really that's been internalized, is really starting to come to the playing field. Here they are in this, as they've kind of developed, and now boys are on the line, that competition is there. So that's just an example that I recently came across in my own life. And unknowingly, when we're like little girls watching media like that, we're just absorbing that kind of information and taking it on in many different ways, whether that's us beginning to fear and become envious or jealous of other girls, or on the other side, like the way comparison can flip either way is sometimes we're comparing ourselves and feeling less than, or sometimes we're comparing ourselves and feeling better than. Neither one of those are good. This is why I personally stopped listening to certain musical artists, because I realized where these certain songs used to like get me hype and they'd be great to work out to, or like get ready to like go out, whatever, as I was really listening to the lyrics and becoming more aware of what I was consuming and maybe what was affecting my belief systems, even about myself, it was kind of sad for me to hear some of these songs that are like trashing other women, and like the woman and the singer in particular, how a lot of the lyrics in some of these songs were, it was like this false confidence that was like confidence that was based off of the fact that this woman believed herself to be better than others. And I say false confidence because that's not truly what I feel as confidence. I mean, I always say, like, if you have to stand on top of others, you're not truly tall. Like, that's kind of how I see it. It's like, if you have to put other people down in order to feel better than them and feel like you are worth something, that's cheap. Like, and it's never going to be enough, because you aren't actually building yourself up and making yourself like a whole quality person. And I mean, that goes for a lot of different things in life, but that's my personal view on how true confidence is really building ourselves up so we can lift up other people. And that's really when you have true lasting influence and power, I guess, if you want to think of it in that way. So, but you're using it for good and not evil. So in that aspect, like, internalized misogyny is something that, I mean, it's an epidemic. It's a sickness. I think so much unnecessary conflict is a product of it. And that's why I stopped listening to certain musical artists, because I didn't want to believe that, because I noticed in myself with the own insecurities that I'm working through. It's like, okay, if my confidence is based off of feeling better than others, that immediately puts me in a vulnerable spot, because therefore that means someone else must be better than me, because can't all be the best at everything. So it was actually contributing and not actually helping sustain true confidence in myself. And so that was a couple years ago when I kind of changed up my music style, but it's something that I still have to kind of be aware of. And if I notice certain women and I start to feel jealous of them or envious of them, I really have been able to find an antidote in that by like kind of switching to a more loving mindset where it's like, if I'm feeling envious or jealous of them, I have to kind of be honest with myself and acknowledge like there's something good about this person. Like, and that might be more of a reflection on maybe something I need to work on in myself. So let's say I'm jealous of a woman because um, of her success, then it's not like I'm not successful because she's successful. It's like, okay, I see something in her that I really admire, like good for her, yes, but also like how can I cultivate that in myself? And there's lots of different ways that we can explore themes like that. But I also just love to teach my clients, like especially women, like just because there's a beautiful female doesn't mean that you're not beautiful. It's like we're all beautiful in our own way, not to sound cliche, but it's like if someone is shining really bright, it doesn't mean that you're shining any less bright. And so for it's like someone to be shining bright, it doesn't really make them shine any brighter if they were to put out your light or vice versa. Like it's just going to be a whole lot more darkness in the sky. But if we have a bunch of stars in the sky, it's so brilliant and there's so much beauty to look at, and they all have their own little twinkle. And I think that's something really special. So just knowing that we can all shine, we can all support each other, and it just leads to such a healthier collective. And so that leads me to kind of my own journey of really wanting to cultivate healthy community of females in my life, because I mean I've definitely had female friends in my life, but no friendships that have really like lasted long term. Maybe like for a season here and there, but like all my life long friends are dudes. Like one of my best friends, like we've been besties since first grade, so and I cherish that friendship. But cultivating a healthier relationship with other women has also kind of helped me open my eyes on my own femininity and how I can strengthen that. And I mentioned at the very beginning of this conversation about how sometimes trauma can play a part in maybe our wounded femininity. And that's certainly the case for me in some aspects, whether it's like getting bullied by women, having like infidelity occur, where women, like a woman maybe did interfere with a relationship or relationship within your family system, and or etc. And so having to heal from those instances has been something that I have really been on a journey with. And when it comes down to being able to add love into this situation, it's like hating a woman, like another woman, is not going to do anything for me. It's just going to keep reinforcing whatever it is that I feel that threat is there. So instead, if I can channel that energy into like learning from what that other woman is showing me is activated within myself, and then therefore turning that energy inwards and working on myself, whatever it is, in a loving way, not like, oh, I have to work out so I can look like this girl. No. It's like, how can I recognize what's being activated and then actually really love myself and care for myself so that way I can shine and she can shine. So that kind of leads me to this conversation of divine femininity. And so there's this concept of divine femininity, whether it's and also divine masculinity. So we have kind of like the wounded feminine and the wounded masculine. We have the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And so when it comes down to being a woman or a woman identifying person, the divine feminine, it's going to be looking like kind of what I've already described. So really shedding that internalized misogyny and really wanting to be a supporter of other women. So the wounded feminine energy is going to have stuff in it like codependency, wanting to control others, insecurity, comparing ourselves to others both like positively I say positive comparison, but like I'm better than this person versus like that person's better than me. Those are both types of comparison, and they're both coming from the wounded feminine place. And then other things as well, as such as like just not taking care of ourselves or not having boundaries. And then when we kind of move and heal and recover and really get to know ourselves and who we truly are and our worth, that's when we're moving more into this divine feminine space. So that's uplifting other women and cheering them on, as well as being gentle with ourselves and kind to ourselves and loving our body and respecting our body and having boundaries with other people. And there's also a difference between like having boundaries and respecting those boundaries, and then also kind of what we call like the masculine shield. So that's like when, because everyone in the world has like both masculine and feminine, like that yin and the yang, the balance. So some people express that differently than others, and that's totally up to them. But for what we call like the masculine shield, that's like for someone who's more on the feminine side, who's maybe not having like a great relationship with like their masculine energy. Like it's a little, there isn't any balance with the yin and the yang. It's like all yin or all yang. So that being said, like the masculine shield and someone who's more feminine, like naturally, like as like myself as a woman identifying person, how I experience the masculine shield is like being too like closed off, like isolating myself from others, or not allowing myself to receive support, not allowing myself to cry, those kind of things. So it's kind of almost like too much protective energy and not enough like vulnerability and flow. On the other side, like if the feminine shield is up, which might be a little bit of an oxymoron, but hear me out. So that is like if someone who is maybe like not taking care of themselves and maybe wants to just take, and isn't like empowered to like advocate for their needs and show up for themselves, but is rather like expecting people to wait on them hand and foot. Like that's a protective thing, but ultimately it's not like really helping them thrive with that balance of like respecting themselves, but also like allowing there to be support. So that being said, with the divine feminine and just being on this journey myself, I just am so grateful for just the community of women I've been able to cultivate, whether it's in like my codependency support group, whether it's with my like friends that I've made recently and over the past year, whether it is like in my yoga and like spiritual group that I hang out with often. There's just so many, there's such an abundance of feminine energy now, and I can really see how grounding it is, how supportive it is and necessary. I really need it in my life. So it's interesting how I've been able to kind of move from this lipstick tomboy who was always just one of the dudes to more of like being my authentic self, but with a bunch of supportive women as well. So it's been such a nice change of pace, and I just really appreciate all of the empathy and understanding as I just really get to embrace my own womanhood right now as I'm moving into soon to be a married lady and eventually a mother and all that fun stuff. Like I'm so glad to be on this journey of really knowing what my authentic femininity is, because it might be different than how I've seen it in media or how I've seen it with like my mom or whatever the case may be. It's like really learning what femininity is to me and embracing that. And it's also made like such a great difference in my partnership with my fiance, because that masculine shield was like a problem for a little bit, where I wasn't allowing myself to receive his support sometimes. Like I felt like it was giving my power away, like if he wanted to provide for me or whatever the case may be, or even like opening my doors for me and those kind of things. For him, that's his way of showing love and really honoring his healthy masculine, is wanting to like take care of me. And I had to really go through a process in my own vulnerability, my own femininity, where it's like it's not like he's taking away my power, but it's really me activating my power and allowing myself to receive and allowing us to have a balance in our relationship. And knowing that I deserve to receive. I don't always have to give. And so therefore, if I allow myself to receive, then I'm able to be more charged up, and then I can give to him in ways that are maybe like more natural for me, like whether it's just like helping cultivate our home life balance, or for me, cooking is like a love language. So I love like making all these delicious foods, utilizing like all my nutritionist skills and whatnot. And that's like something that I do to take care of myself, making sure I'm having like healthy meals and getting the right nutrients and calories. That's also a way that I can take care of him, since he's in a very physical job. He needs healthy food to sustain his energy. So it's just such a nice balance. So with that, I hope that's giving you lots of nuggets to explore when it comes down to your own femininity and womanhood. And if you're more masculine identifying, or even more like male, if you're a guy watching this, or if you identify as a guy, and you're watching this or listening to this, you can also apply these concepts to your own life. Like when it comes down to what healthy masculinity looks like to you, I'm sure you've heard at some point the concept of like toxic masculinity. This is very, very, very similar. So the wounded feminine is kind of like the female version of toxic masculinity. So I guess it'd be toxic femininity if you wanted to compare them in that way. But anyways, so either way, I just hope this helps you explore a loving relationship with yourself, and helps you just get curious about maybe more ways that you can cultivate balance in your life, in your relationships, in your friendships, but ultimately in that relationship with yourself. So if you have any feedback, questions, comments, you know where to find me. Just please reach out. I'm always happy to hear from you. I appreciate and love all the feedback that I'm getting so far. So just thank you for being on this journey with me, and for listening to me. And I really hope that you're able to explore these themes and learn something that can benefit you. So I think that's all for now. I'm sure these themes will come up again at some point, but it's been a pleasure as always. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. And I will talk to you all again soon. But for now, farewell and have a great day. Bye.